Hi, my name is Brenda Titus. I'm a professional hypnotist in Orange County, California. For information about myself and my program, please go to my website, ochypnotherapy.com. So today's topic is remembering what it's like to be a new client. And first, this was helpful for me and my growth and remembering what it is like to be a new client. But I also thought that I would share some of my insights that I have in my approach and how I think about what it's like to be a new client here in my office with me. So, you might notice I have a separate set of videos on my YouTube page called My Year Recovering from Retinal Detachment. And so if you go over there, it's my very personal journey of experiencing some really serious vision and eye challenges. And so this last week, I had to go see a new doctor, or actually, check that. I got to go see a new doctor. And so I was really thinking about what it's like to add another practitioner to the list of people who are helping us. So obviously, when people come to see me, first is the decision to seek help. And even in my situation, I had to make a decision to seek help. And in my situation, I needed a new approach. I was kind of looking for a second, my doctors and I were looking for a second opinion, some additional kinds of things to look at. And that's often what happens when people come to see me. Maybe one way or another, what they've been doing to try to make change for themselves or to deal with a challenge hasn't been working as well, or sometimes something, big changes in their lives, and so they've made a decision to seek help. And that it is actually one of the first things that I ask when I do my consultations is I'll say, okay, well, what's been going on lately that inspired you to seek my assistance? And then oftentimes that will really get us down to the heart of the matter. It's usually something that has been going on for quite some time. It's just that something has changed that has led them to seek help with me. So first, the decision to seek help. So the second part, researching the provider. So, and I did the same thing that I'm sure my clients do with me. Who is this doctor? In my case, it was a doctor. What's his education? What's his background? And what is his area of specialization? Now, in my circumstances, I've been a hypnotist now for 13 years, so I have quite a bit of experience and practice. And so when people look at my website or look at my reviews, they will see that things go back quite a bit of time. And then educationally, actually, I have a place on my website that lists my educational history and some professional background. Now, it's interesting though, because when we get into areas of specialization, that I really talk to people on a more personal level about that, because I actually do a pretty broad service. But it is true that there are things that that particularly interest me, or things that I may be thinking more about at any given time. And like lately, I've been doing a lot of work myself where it comes to really being aware of the emotional issues surrounding illness and injury, especially because that is what I have been dealing with. I obviously work a lot with inner child issues, and so, we think about, those areas of specialization. And so that is something I always tell my clients as well, that, beyond being a hypnotist, before I was a hypnotist, I worked in crisis intervention. So I have a lot of background in trauma, and that is my degree as well. So that kind of adds to maybe even some of the emphasis, my areas of specialization as a hypnotist. So in my case with the vision, there's a lot of areas, very particular specializations around eyes. And so I actually really got referred to a very particular type of specialist. So that was kind of one of the things that made me think about this. So what we've got: decision to seek help, researching the provider, and then number three, oh my gosh, thinking about how the provider's schedule is going to fit into our schedule. And the way that I see clients 3 days a week, and then those other 2 days I'm doing other business things, and personal commitments, my doctor's appointments. And so I really need to be sure when I'm approaching somebody that hopefully their schedule is going to align with mine. And I always have to be aware of that with my clients, where I'm very clear: these are my appointment times. I'm really sorry I'm not able to adjust them. I have other commitments that I need to take care of. And so we have to think about that. And I also had to think about, actually, when it came down to even scheduling the appointment, okay, well, what am I willing to do if I need to juggle some other things within my life to be able to fit within their schedule? In my situation, it meant leaving my house very early in the morning to make it to this appointment. But I said, you know what, I will make it happen. And another thing that I have to deal with my clients, and the same with this provider in my own circumstances, was when I initially called, they said, I called in August, and they said, okay, well, we're booking people now for the end of October. And I took a breath and I said, well, I understand how that goes. I am often in a very similar situation where people have to wait a long time to see me. And I said, okay, well, let's look at October and see what we can do. And thank goodness, actually, it did work out that I did get to see them a bit faster, which was really wonderful. And sometimes that happens with me. I'm able to piece together my schedule to be able to see somebody sooner. But that also is very tricky. And so, it is a reality of needing sometimes to wait, even though there's maybe an urgent issue, the provider may or may not be able to get you in for a while. So number 4 is about that wait. Now, the wait in seeing a hypnotist, seeing me, there is some benefit to that. I mean, obviously, I really try to get people in as soon as I'm able to, but I do a lot during our consultation to help people start thinking about the issue, thinking about the history, and so that then when we start working together, that we can they're already kind of aware of some of the things that we need to address and talk about on our first session. And so then that really hits, in addition to waiting, there is the idea of preparing for that appointment. And sometimes people will come to me with and I did this with my doctor, a list. I said, I had a very clearly written list about the history of the surgeries that I've had and the interventions and the symptoms. And so then that way my doctor, he had it all written down. I even brought some pictures of some of the prior, medical evaluations. And so that actually helped, because then he could see the progression and he had the dates all written down. And that really helps, actually. Sometimes people will come to me with some things in writing and, about their history, or, sometimes, we have some complicated family tree that we need to be addressing within our discussion. And so they'll bring, a sheet that shows, this is mom and this is dad and this is stepmom and, and this is this brother with this parent and and all of that. So sometimes people will come to me with some things written down. The other thing that I really appreciate is when I have people prepare and really think about how their sessions are going to benefit them. And so that is a really neat thing when they, open up their journal and they say, we're really clear about our goals for their sessions and what they want to get out of it. And so that is kind of one of those neat things that goes along with preparing for that first appointment. So the next part And I really believe in seeing a new provider, or seeing me for the first time. I'm the new provider in somebody's world, is this opportunity to share your story, to tell your history, to speak it. Sometimes my clients, in the midst of how I ask about the history, I'm able to give them a perspective that they hadn't thought about before. And so that is a really neat thing with being able to see a new provider, see a hypnotist, because I think about things differently. In my situation, I got to see a new doctor who had a different perspective on my vision challenges than any other doctor. And so that is one of the neat things sometimes about getting, whether it's a second opinion, getting a new perspective, seeing a new provider. Let's see. Now the next one. Okay. Oh, it is exciting to see a new provider, and it is also scary. And I know this all the time when I watch for people coming through, coming to approach me, and it can be intimidating. But it's exciting because it could help. There could be a change. That's obviously my goal. To help make the person's life better, in especially in their primary goal. But there's a lot of side goals usually that we have. So it is exciting that the intervention could help, and there could be a good positive change. It is also scary because sometimes interventions are not helpful, and or people get afraid. I see a lot of people for fear or anxiety, and they're afraid that and sadly a lot of my clients, they're afraid that they're so far gone that nothing else has helped in the past, so why is this going to help? And so I always say, well, because we're going to do something different, so let's give it a try. And and so we usually are able to help quite a bit. In when we go to a doctor, I'm personally experiencing a lot of well, we can only help so much, and facing that reality of we can get you only so far in our intervention. And so, but we have to be realistic about that as well. Sometimes my clients might be thinking about, well, how hard is it going to be to make change? Or how easy is it going to be? How long is it going to take before I get results? So those are some of those exciting and scary things maybe that people might be thinking about as they're preparing to see a new provider. Obviously, my big goal when I see people for their first time, as we think about me being the new provider, is to give them hope, and hope that that things will get better. Sometimes, like in my situation, I've had to learn that the hope is around learning to adjust to the changes as well. So sometimes we have to be realistic around the hope, or the realistic around our goals as well. So a combination of hope that things will get better, and sometimes that getting better is maybe our attitude or our acceptance of the challenge that the client is going through as well. Also, I actually am very clear with people. I do not do the one-hit wonder type of hypnosis. I do have my magic wand right here. I love to wave it at people and say, this is not going to fix everything, but it is fun and it makes them laugh. And it makes me laugh and smile. But, there are layers to the work that we do. And so, yes, my goal, especially on session 1, is to give them hope that things are going to get better. And maybe they're already starting to feel better, especially through that hope. But there are going to be layers to the progress and the process that we're doing. And that is very much what happens as well with injury and illness as well. It's it's a long-term type of process sometimes. Some illnesses or injuries will take years, quite frankly, for people to recover from, because there's layers to that. which is actually, I mean, literally what I'm experiencing right now. I got to the 1 year mark of dealing with the eye problems, and that freed them up to be able to be open to some different types of interventions. So, so it's kind of interesting how all of this came together. Now, the final one that I wanted to share today has to do with sharing how you feel about seeing a new provider with your family and friends. And so, I acknowledge that sometimes my clients do not tell their friends or family that they are either seeking help for whatever they're coming to me for, or especially that they're, if they don't tell people that they're seeing a hypnotist. And I respect that. I understand. It's not just because, they might see hypnosis as something different, but also because then they don't want to have their friends or family noticing, critiquing, keeping track of their progress. And I have had clients who've said, well, my husband says this better work or else. And then it's so much pressure, right? On the client. First of all, I mean, the client, they're the one who has to live with, that person who's putting on that pressure. But it also, it makes it harder for us, really to work, because then they're feeling the pressure and I'm feeling the pressure. And so I do understand that sometimes people wait a while even to tell their friends or their family, or they wait until, maybe they've had some great, opportunities, some big change, and then they tell their friends or family. Now, this can be challenging because, people, can be very private and personal. I heavily rely on personal referrals, successful clients who then tell somebody else, or people who leave reviews. But it's also why, I've seen maybe 700 clients in the time that I've been here, but a small number of reviews, just because really it's very personal, or it's a very personal issue that then being public on a review platform. So I'm always incredibly thankful for the people who do leave me reviews, because they mean so much to me, the work that we do and the success and the progress that they've had. But I also understand that it is such a personal thing to leave on such a public platform. So yeah. Now, there is one kind of funny thing, which is partly why I had the idea to do this video, which is that sometimes the outcome or what people learn about themselves can be very unexpected. And so the client is kind of like, well, I never thought about my issue from that perspective. And so it is actually kind of funny, because then they have all these aha moments, and then it's kind of actually hard to explain to friends or family. And so I'm actually very aware of that. When I saw my new provider the other day, he has me doing something kind of different with my vision. And I looked at him and I thought, well, what in the pseudoscience are you talking about? And and I was Googling it. I thought, this is very strange what he's telling me to do, and which I'll talk about one day soon on my year recovering from retinal detachment. If you want to take a look, it'll be there soon. But he's having me do something that I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And I Googled it and I looked and I thought, I'm not seeing anything. And then after a couple of hours, I kind of came up with the right search terms, and I was able to figure it out, and it makes sense. But it was also kind of trying to explain it to my husband, or even as I'm going to explain it on a video, kind of thinking, well, that was kind of a weird idea, but if it works, then I will be incredibly happy. So I have hope. Actually, the thing that he had me do, I did right away. I'm technically doing it right now, and so I'm learning how to use my vision and my experience of my vision a little bit differently. And so And isn't that cool? Because that's what I do here in the hypnosis office as well. And so I hope that you enjoyed learning both about, how I think about my approach with seeing my new clients, and sharing that enthusiasm with you as well, and kind of how I think about things a little bit differently as well. And like I said, I will be posting a new video before too long, sharing some updates on my year recovering from retinal detachment, and sharing this funny new technique that he has me working on. And so I'll share that before too long. And so with that, I wish you a wonderful day. Again, if you're interested in learning more about me and my program, it's at ochypnotherapy.com. Have a wonderful day.